Hello, hope you are well. It's been a while since I've recorded something, I've been a bit busy, but I'm back in the studio and I really wanted to touch upon something that's been kind of grating on me for a while now. And I want to offer a few postures to alleviate, but also to explain a little bit more around this myth of tight hips. And that tight hips are a really bad thing. We should all come to yoga, we should all really stretch them out so they become really kind of floppy and loose and flexible. We can all do these kind of crazy shapes. So believe it or not, having tight hips is not a bad thing. This joint, or the joint, is primarily designed to provide stability. We all need a certain amount of stiffness to prevent inefficiency in our gait. So our side-to-side tilt in the centre of the body. And we also need to help maintain alignment as well as support the legs. So the hips are designed to be strong. A certain amount of stiffness is needed to carry out all these functions. So don't think that if things feel tight and stiff, you can only move your leg out to a certain degree, it's necessarily a bad thing for you. Also, I think it's really worth just mentioning, we carry emotions in the body. And we know that hips are certainly a vessel for emotions, for stress, for various emotions. So this is, a proven, studied topic. This isn't just a yoga-related, airy-fairy idea or concept. This is really proven and will be looked at quite closely. So when you approach kind of opening and stretching hips and maybe they feel stiff or like they don't want to move or this is quite emotionally hard, there probably will be some other reason, something underlying that you should just note a little bit and listen to. However, there's always a however, with tightness and to a certain degree of how much is relevant to you, if that brings on pain, discomfort, if you struggle to get off a chair, stand and repeat actions like this or do it on one leg, if this becomes or is even impossible, if you struggle to bend over to pick up something and you're hinging maybe from your upper back so much more than maybe lower down into the hips, it might be that you do need to work a little bit on your range of motion. But this is about balance, this is about range of motion, mobility and the right amount of strength in the hips. So, with all that said and done, I want to offer a few postures that aren't necessarily going to open your hips, which again is a myth. What is opening the hips? But they're going to provide some maybe increased range of motion in the hips and the lower back. So we're going to start by lying on the back of the body. 6 simple postures or movements if you like, which I hope you can take away and come back to. So we'll start lying on the back. We'll hug the right leg in, and as you hug the right leg in, tilt the pelvis slightly so that your lower back naturally draws down. So at the moment we're just kind of picking at this, we've made sense of it, we can feel there's a stretch maybe in the back of the right hip, maybe the left top of the thigh, but also a secondary kind of stretch a little bit in the lower back. When we swap over the legs, hug the left leg in, lower the right leg down, we're going to create that same slight tilt, activate or get a little bit into the back of the left leg and a little bit of a stretch in the back. Alternate these, maybe you do 5, you do 10 on each side. Take a breath on each side and then just swapping over. Again, this is conscious movement, this is yoga after all. We're present, we're consciously moving, listening and breathing. Swapping sides again, remembering just to tilt things slightly so we're not overly arching or accentuating anything. We're tilting the pelvis, that's the movement internally. We're drawing the lower back down, getting a little bit into the lower back and the back of the hip. Let's just do that once more on the other side. Again, you can always pause this, keep going or continue. And then we'll lower the left foot down, take a bend of the right knee and take a breath there. So now we're going to roll up and down, and we're going to do this really consciously, taking our time. I like to do 10 of these, but that might be too much. You might want to do a few more, it's up to you. So feel free to have the arms down to the sides of the body, feet about hip width apart, so we're just kind of evenly placed, weight is evenly distributed. And we're going to start to slowly roll from the lower back first, so think maybe about the pubic bone lifting, lower back lifting, middle of the back, upper back, until you get to the top. And then when you slowly start to roll down, we're going to roll from the top, the middle of the back, and the lower back. And you're going to find as you do this rolling up and down, or articulating, or practicing articulating the spine, that there's areas that feel much more stiffer than others. You might notice as you go up again, there's areas that don't really roll, they just kind of go up because your legs are pressing the floor away. So you might even want to slow down the movement even further so you can really pick at it, really feel every part of the spine trying to be rolled down. You're trying to roll it down. And don't forget to breathe. Let's just do one of these together. Again, you can pause the video. I said I'd like to do 10, but you've got to do 10 with me. You can pause and press play in a moment. So we'll do one more together. Take a breath, lift slowly the lower back. Rolling up. Making your way to the top of the back. And then slowly rolling between the shoulder blades down, back of the ribs down, lower back down, all the way to the lower back, all the way down to the back of the pelvis, and then the coccyx or the tailbone. You may want to do a little hug and a roll at this point. So just easing in. Nothing aggressive, just nice easing in, natural movements, we're feeling the natural movements of the spine. So the next position we'll be doing is we'll have to roll over onto our side for this one. And when you roll over onto the side, make your way to all fours. And some really good classic use of some cat-cow or some flexion, spinal flexion and spinal extension. You can do this on your forearms if you care to, or your hands. And as you start to move again up and down the spine, do explore a little bit of moving forwards and backwards. Again, I like to do about 10 of these. You might want to do a few less or a few more. And I also like to close my eyes a little bit so I can kind of focus inwards, so I'm less distracted. I can feel the movement much more and listen a little bit more. So as we move up and down the spine, maybe rocking a little bit forwards and back, notice areas of stiffness, like we're kind of hunting out a little bit, seeking out areas that become a little bit interesting as you move up and down. When you find these little moments, these little kind of nuggets of tension, you might not want to continue to move through. You may just want to then alternate into the next position. So don't feel you have to go all the way up and down the spine, especially if there's some really uncomfortable areas. You might just pause there and then move back into the opposite shape. So let's just do one more of each of these together. Take a breath as you move. Again, remembering you can pause me, you can come back to this. Now we've completed that last movement, whichever one we're on, whichever one we naturally get to. Making your way back to centre. Okay, so moving on, we're going into the adductor stretch. Good for the hips, lower back as well. And we'll start by taking, I'll do this facing, actually we'll start by taking the left leg out. Now you might keep your left foot flat on the floor, or you might be on the heel and the toes are going to swivel up. And we'll get a little bit more into the hamstring and the groin if we're going to do it in this way. You can work it out when you start. Either having the hands on the floor in front of you, these are going to help you to sink the back of the groins back, or you can make it a bit harder for yourself and have the hands off the floor. So it's working a little bit more into balance. You could even, if none of that works, bring your forearms down, why not, and use them. So I'm just going to turn back to facing forward so you can see it from a different angle. Just taking the hips as far back as feels interesting, you know, we can feel that there's some stretch, we're not here to tear anything, we're just easing into where there's maybe a little bit too much slightly stiffness, but remembering a certain amount of tightness we need. And again, maybe 10 on this side, we'll do the same on the other leg, or less or more, and not exhausting yourself, just a couple of moments, a couple of breaths on this side. Excellent. Come back to centre, bring that left leg in, let's take the right leg out. And again, you might be on the right heel with the toes up, or have the foot flat, be on your forearms or your hands, and we'll start slowly rocking forwards and back. Again, it's always nice just to kind of zone in a little bit. Closing the eyes helps, we're a little bit less distracted, a little bit more listening. And you can feel as you go back just when to maybe stop, maybe when to back off, not to necessarily keep going. Take a breath, keep breathing. And let's just do that once more on this side. Okay, remember you can always pause, go back, start this leg again. So when we do finish off the side, let's bring that right leg back in. And you may want to, for a moment, have a little sway of the hips side to side. It might feel nice to draw some circles of the body. A little bit of kind of easing in and around. You might also feel that you just need to be still for a moment, perhaps child's pose works nicely for that. Or there's always the option of coming into downward facing dog and getting a little bit more into the legs, arms, chest. Maybe a little bit of movement there as well. Take your time, take a breath or two. Okay, everybody, and we'll start to step the feet or lift the knees so we can step the feet forwards towards the hands. Press up about halfway, have the feet about hip width apart, maybe a little soft bend of the knees. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, start to fold over, let the arms hang. Remember, do keep knees soft, be kind to your hamstrings, be kind to the lower back, but let the head ease down. So this is some segmental flexion or rolling up, segmenting the spine as we do that. The way we're going to do this is just slightly tuck the chin in. You've got to jam anything in, just slightly tuck the chin in. And starting to roll from the lower back up, so not your head lifting first. Starting to roll from the lower back up first slowly. As you roll, notice the tummy, notice the front of the body, and can it feel a little bit awake? So a feeling of almost like your front body could support a little bit the back body as you roll up slowly. Really take your time with these. It's not something you need to rush. When you get to the top, maybe let the shoulders ease down. Take a breath in, breath out. Let the chin tuck and start to roll again. The knees might soften. Try not suddenly round the shoulders forwards. I've seen that quite a few times. I've done that myself as well. Kind of rolling in to get in. Let the chest stay a little bit open, but just the chin slightly tucks. And think about rolling from the top down towards the lower back. So we're slowly going top, middle, lower back to where we started. Take a breath. You haven't got to pull yourself. Find your natural end. Again, a little softness of the knees, chin tightly or softly, better word, softly tucked. Starting to roll, breathing in as you roll up from the lower back, not the upper back first, lower back, like you're stacking segments on top of one another. As you roll, belly a little bit awake. You've got the front body, so maybe a bit of core work or feeling of core work here, slowly rolling all the way up. And the shoulders will ease. Head's going to sit on top of the neck. Take a breath in. Full breath out. And just roll down once more together. Again, I like to do 10 of these sometimes. It just depends on how much time you've got and how it's feeling. So for the last one, we'll tuck the chin. We're going to start to roll. Don't round the shoulders in too much so you can't breathe. Starting to slowly roll forwards. Really focusing on that upper, middle, lower back. You get to the end. Take your time. When you get to the end, take a breath. Look down. Take your hands up in front of you, step the legs out a little bit behind you. Make your way to downward facing dog. Have a little bend in the knees, focus on sending the sitting bones up and back. Head can ease down. For the whole length of the spine, trunk, waist, front and back of the body. And take a breath. Roll slowly forwards as you inhale. And lower the knees on the exhale. Well done. And you might want to pause there for a moment, come back to child's pose. Or feel free to finish there if you want to, or revisit any part. And you can take a little seat, just a breath or two, to let that just mellow a little bit. So some intricate movements there, maybe a lot of repetitions. Give yourself maybe just a minute at the end or so, or longer if you have more time, for things to just digest. I hope that was useful. Please drop me any comments. Any feedback is always welcomed, or anything more you'd like to see more of, always welcomed. Take care. See you all soon. Lots of love.